guys? Tim Austin with DragBoss Garage. Welcome back to the channel. So let me give you a little bit of update on the Cougar, because it's been a while since I talked about it. I kind of not wanted to talk about it, but I had an issue with Ackerman angle. And we talked about that, the way the car rotates around in a radius. And I was having some tire scrub, which wasn't right. So what we ultimately decided, my chassis guy and I, what we're going to do, he's going to do, because it's way beyond my capability. But here's a picture of this. But here's the spindle here, and you can see it right here. Now, what we had originally done was switch the spindles from right to left, which changes the tie rod angle here. And it works, but the way the tie rods are swept back too far, and the fact that I had issues with the way the caster and camber were set up originally, it just wasn't going to work out right. It would not be safe. So what we did was, he's taken a piece of angle iron and modified it to fit here in these spindle bolts. Remember, it's going to be a 90-degree. So what I did is I bought these strange strut steering arms, 3402C, like this. And what we're going to do, this is going to be modified obviously, but it's going to be welded to this with an angle iron, and it's going to come back like this. Actually, it's going to be further out, but it's going to straighten up the tie rods, and it's going to help with that Ackerman angle. And that's what we're trying to achieve. So that's just the update. Hopefully I'll get that back next week, we were talking about. Keep you posted on that. But here's what I'm doing now. I talked about mounting the shifter in the car, and you saw Mrs. DragBoss shifting it and going through the pattern. This is the Mr. Gasket V-Gate inline shifter. Now, I got a lot of input from guys saying, hey, that's a great shifter. I never had any problems with it on the street. You'll love it, you know, once you get used to the pattern the way it is, and especially with downshifting where you have to pull up on this arm here to get it to go back up into the upper first and second pattern. Now, with that said, quite a few guys said, oh, if you put that in there, you're going to blow the engine. You're going to have all these transmission issues shifting. It's not going to be right. They're a real pain in the butt. So that got me thinking someone had recommended the Long shifter. Now, I showed you this. I have my buddy Richard Lavoie in Canada had sent me this one. This is a brand new Hurst ramrod. Same type of vertical inline shifter, but brand new. This Mr. Gasket I got from my buddy Kyle Murdoch with the top loader 4-speed. It came on it. It was in a Fox body Mustang, shifted well without any issues. So I had talked to Chris at G-Force Transmission, and that's where the Long shifter comes from. It comes from G-Force Transmission. Leonard Long, the guy that started the company, developed the shifter. So it's supposed to be fail-proof. It's one of the best shifters out there. And it's expensive, but you get what you pay for. Now, with that said, his son Mike runs the company now more. Leonard races a Mustang and is fast. I mean, he's in the 7s with that car. So they needed a tail shaft number on the top loader, because they only make that Long shifter for a top loader for 2 different transmission tail shaft numbers, a D0 and a C4. So mine, I had to take this shifter off to get to the number because it's on the left side behind the shifter. And someone had said that those brackets aren't correct anyways, and they weren't. They're a hodgepodge of shifters for that top loader, but not necessarily for the inline shifter. Now, the correct one I got from Patrick Yoakum. So I'll feature his Mustang coming up, but he has a Jericho DR4 in his Mustang, and he just sent me a video of it, and he said, look, Tim, you need this bracket here. And he sent me a link for one on eBay, and I bought it. You can see it's got a little modification there. It doesn't matter. So what I wanted to do is mock it up to see how it fits. And sure enough, I put it on the transmission. Here's a picture of it. And it mounts it nice. It actually brings a shifter back away from the tunnel and closer to the driver's seat, which you'll see with the new seats in it. You know, Kyle Murdoch hooked me up with this shifter that came with the transmission. And it was pretty loose. You saw it work pretty well. So when I went to take it off, what do you think happened? Yeah, this reverse plate here came loose and slipped out down here. You probably can't see it good, but I'll bring the camera in and show you in a second. But this slipped off, and what I did is try to cheat. Just unbolt the shifter from the transmission, leave the rods hooked up, lean it off to the side, do what I had to do. When I went to put it back, that's when this thing came loose, and then I fought it for about an hour or so, trying to get it to line up and get this back in, and I said, you know what, I'm done. The shifter's coming out. So I took it out, and I started working on the bench, and now I know how it goes together. But then next thing I know, the thing's all apart. So I said I might as well take it apart, make a video on it for other people to see. It may help them. So I'll show you how it comes apart and how it goes back together. So I've never done anything with a standard transmission other than put a clutch in it, pilot bearing, pressure plate, that kind of stuff, flywheel, but never had messed with any shifters. So it'll be a good learning experience for all of us if you've never had one apart. But it's pretty intricate and cool how they did this. So these are the two main bolts that hold it together. I showed you the reversing rod right here, and it has some little bronze type washers on it. The other thing I hate about working on this thing is every time I touch it, I get greasy. It's dirty. So I think that definitely plays a role in how things come apart and shift. So there's whatever arm that is. That's the forward, I think. I don't want to screw this up. Well, I know that I can take this out because I know that has to go in last. That's the reverser part. And then these little bushings go in here. And then there's some other bushings, little bronze bushings on the shift lever. So I'm just going to keep the orientation just like that. And then there's another little bushing here that goes on this thing. And I'll set that like that. That bushing here goes on the shifter here. And then here's the other back part of that plate. And it's probably missing some little tiny washers, thrust type washers or bushings. I don't know where they went. It doesn't matter. I'm going to put it back together the way it was, but that's it. So let me clean all the parts up and then we'll start putting it back together. All right, guys, let's see if we can get this back together. So I got the base plate kind of elevated so things are got some free play, so to speak. I tried without it and it just was too difficult. It's still tough. So I know, let's see, that this guy here, that has to fit in there for the reverser. So that has to fit there. You have to have that gap in there to keep this detent at a certain position outward, or it wants to come off. So we know that this goes in here like this. So we're going to put that back down on this. So that goes there. And I kind of line it up with the hole in here just to kind of give me an idea. So we're not moving stuff all over the darn place. The hardest thing is this little part for the reverse. It fits in a little tab here and it's always kind of wanting to fall out of there. Makes it hard to do. So it has to be at a certain angle here for it to fit in there and fit here. So you have to kind of get that set up orientation wise and then start to move it and put it together. So we know that goes there. Hopefully it can help stick that in there along with that little thrust type washer. And then you might as well put this one in. Now it may have had one on the bottom. I don't know. This one only has one on the top and that's what it's getting. Now one of the things I noticed is if the handles go up, then that you need to put a little spacer under the handle. And that keeps this bushing against the base plate here and leaves that little gap, which makes it a little bit easier to try to get installed. But I still had to put a piece of tape back here to keep this little pin up, which locks into this. And that's the key. So what I've been doing is trying to get this in the right orientation. Like that, without knocking everything over. So this is definitely an exercise in patience, especially if you never did it before. Then this, you can save that, slides underneath this. Nice. And that goes there. This goes like this, but there again, the bushings have all kind of fallen down in there. Then you take this face plate, and that has to slide underneath this little tab. Probably do it after. There. Of course, I forget this piece, but not a big deal. It's been a struggle everywhere you look at it. Now, it'd be nice if this just fell right into place. And I can tell that these ain't no country picnic. There. Now the question is, because that kind of keeps tension on these staying on there. Whoa, okay. Okay, there you go. So what I'm gonna do, because I can't afford this coming apart until I get over to the car, and I gotta go make dinner. I'm gonna put this on. Because they normally have this big brass thing, like this one here on the back, those two brass nuts. This one doesn't. It has some big nut, or they cut off a piece of pipe to space it out, which at this point it works and I'm not going to worry about it. Put it back in, crossing our fingers. I was exercising patience, let me tell you right there. Well, it's in the car. You can see it was cut out quite a bit for the previous Jericho 4-speed, but I'll tell you, not bad. So that bracket that I have will bring the transmission back further. Won't have to worry about being so close to this. That's it.